Hey guys, so last time we were looking at web components. Remember we had a few buttons here that kind of simulated a little design system where you pass in props to change the variance, albeit the colors are a little crude, but for learning purposes, it's fine. So I've added a little button here, toggle, and this green button, toggle me, now has a toggle me ID. And what I want to do is be able to toggle this disabled. Now, we're going to use this video to look at how you listen to and observe attributes in web components. Because remember, this button is actually internal to our shadow root. So if you go down here, this button is actually here. So we can't just toggle it like it's in the light DOM, it's in the shadow DOM, okay? So the other thing that I've added is this little cached button here in the render method. So we're in render. And you'll see why in a second. But the first thing I want to do is code up this toggle. So that toggle is just going to, it's just going to grab that button. So we'll say const button equals document query selector, and we called it toggle me. And we're going to say if that button has the attribute disabled, then we're going to say button remove attribute disabled. And we're just coding up a quick toggle here. Else, I'm going to yank this and put it, save a little time. Otherwise, we're going to set the attribute to disabled. Okay? So now we have our toggle. But again, if we try to do this now, because we're not in the light DOM, we are in the shadow DOM, that's not yet going to work. So what do we have to do? We have to actually internally change this. Actually, let me show you something to make this crystal clear. If we were to log this button here, we'd see that the web component has disabled, I believe, but not the internal buttons. Let me show you what I mean. It's an attribute on, I do this a lot. I have to set attribute with a second argument. So now if we toggle this, if you look in the console, you can see that our web component has the disabled toggled. But inside that, we have a toggle, we have a shadow DOM with the button, and then we got to disable that too. But because we're using web components, we have to handle that part. So I'll just make this a little smaller. So to do that, we need to observe the disabled attribute and then listen to the attribute change callback. And that looks like this. Static get observed attributes. And we just have to return a list of the attributes we want to listen for, and that's going to be disabled. And then we listen to the lifecycle event, attribute changed callback. And anytime an attribute changes the old value, we're going to get called back here. Whoa, Rob is not typing today. Okay, so now we want to say if the name equals disabled, because that's what we're wanting to listen for. Then we're going to say, hey, if we don't yet have this button, which we should because we did this up in the render method up here, right? Let's go ahead and do it now. So this is a little optimization because we don't want to just do this every time an attribute changes. But the real important part that we want to look at is if the new value does not equal null, we know this is disabled, then we're going to have to set on our button the attribute disabled. disabled. This button set attribute disabled, and we want to maybe style this cursor equals not allowed. So we have a little visual affordance. Otherwise, we're going to yank this over here because this time we're going to remove the attribute disabled, and we'll go ahead and set this to pointer. And with that, now if we clear all this junk out, actually, I do this every single time. I don't know why. Second argument. All right. Now we should work, I think. Okay, so we see if I hover this, we have that not allowed pointer, whereas when it's not disabled, we have a pointer. And what's more interesting for us, for learning purposes, we saw that this my button, the web component itself, the custom element, my button, it's in the light DOM. So we saw earlier that that gets the attribute toggle disabled. But more interestingly, I suppose, this internal button gets disabled as well. And so now it's, I guess you'd say, really disabled. So that's an interesting thing with web components. We do have to manage the internal native elements we use on the shadow DOM, in this case, this button. And we can do so by observing the attribute, in this case, disabled. But we could observe variant and do something when the variant changes. Or we could maybe have an ID that represents a primary key that we have to go fetch some product data. There's a lot of reasons why we might want to observe attributes, but this is how you do that. And yeah, so we'll probably keep going through other lifecycle methods, but hopefully this was a nice continuation on our exploration of web components. And I guess we'll see you next time.